Hello, hi. Hey, I'm actually more on time than I thought I was going to be. So here we are, Tuesday, 5 o'clock. So a little bit of biology. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about organisation hacks and simple ideas in order to make your studying easier. Oh, and I haven't shared my screen. Hold on, haven't shared the screen. Da, 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 da. Silly old me. Here we go. Start again. So here we're doing a quick live stream on organisation hacks. Simple ideas to help make your studying easier. So over the next, hopefully 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be giving you a load of food for thought. Things that you can do. None of them are rocket science, but simple things that you can do that help you organise your space, your workspace, regardless of what studying facilities you've got at home or not, help you organise your notes, and then help you organise your work. Short-term planning and long-term planning. So let's get started. Here are my references. I'm going to, give credit where credit is due. So the only study guide you'll ever need from Jade Bowler, ex-student of mine. She's, I'm sure you know her. She's a study tuber. She's got about 500,000 subscribers now on YouTube. And she's written a book, and actually incredibly readable, full of practical advice. And actually got chapters as well on really important topics like perfectionism and mental health, and just understanding the school system, so understanding the context that you are working in, as it were. Hello, Eve. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see other people here as well. And the other one that I want to point out, this is more a teachery one, is a book by Steve Oakes and Martin Griffin, which is called A-Level Mindset. If you put A-Level Mindset, Steve Oakes and Martin Griffin into Google, you would find a short YouTube video where they explain what this is all about. So activities that help A-level students understand the step up that is required from GCSE to A-level. And they base this book on these initials, VESPA. And when I go through them, you will also recognize that these can be, different words can be used by teachers and different words are used by Jade to talk about the same thing. So V is vision. In other words, motivation. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you working when you'd rather be out and all the rest of it? Number two, effort. This is the one that I've spoken about least probably, is the increase in effort required to do well at A-level in comparison to the effort required to do well at GCSE. This is a classic place where bright students slip up at GCSE. They've relatively sailed through GCSE, not had to work too hard, got their 8s and 9s quite simply, quite easily, and then they hit a brick wall when it comes to A-level because they just assume that work, that level of effort, which wasn't too much to do well at GCSE, is all that's required to do well at A-level, and it is categorically not the case. Next is systems, organisation, by any other word, which is going to be, so I've lifted some of what I think are the best examples from this book in terms of organising work. I've also lifted stuff from Jade as well. Then there's practice. This is about, so here, look at my, not my YouTube channel, my website, www.biologycarol.co.uk. There is a freebie on that website, how to improve your grade up to an A star. Here, this practice, I got some of the methods from this book because that was about me researching the skills that are required to be able to access every question type at A-level. So that is about having knowledge. It's about being able to apply the knowledge. It's about being able to evaluate, interpret, draw conclusions from data. It's about being able to adapt experimental techniques to make them better. It's about being able to read questions carefully. Lots of different skills, not just about knowing more stuff. Notice that all those different skills. And this is about being able, this is what I talk about in my freebie on the website, being able to analyze and understand which skills you are lacking, and therefore putting things in place to improve those skills so that you can access more questions. That's where this is from. And finally is attitude. And this is about, there was back in my day, there was a little toy called a Weeble. And they were basically egg-shaped toys. They were weighted at the bottom, and if you pushed them, they would just come bouncing back up to upright. And the tagline was, Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And that's what we're looking for in terms of attitude. If you get D's and E's in your tests, and you're hoping for a B at A-level, do you kind of, in terms of your attitude and mental resilience, lie back and play dead and kind of go, oh my goodness, I can't do it, I just can't do, A-level? Or do you say, okay, I've got a D and an E, but if I work out why I lost marks, in other words, analyze and work out the skills that you're lacking, then actually I can turn this DE grade into a C grade and then potentially turn it into a B grade. Are you resilient? Do you use setbacks to learn from, or do you use setbacks, do they so floor you that you can't move on? So that's, two really good books, which I found really useful. So this video can probably be summed up is have a place, have a list, and have a plan. So because we're going to be talking about study space, we're going to be talking about making lists in all forms, and we're going to be talking about using a diary to actually form a plan. And all of that sounds terribly, terribly formal, but it can be done in a very simple way. So study space, first of all, this is being talked about. So it's talking about a study space, that this is the place where you work, and the only thing that you do there is work. So, and I am talking about, this is regardless of whether you have a desk in your room. You may not have. I am not assuming that everybody listening to this is, has a wonderful middle class environment, where it's all laid out for them. Your study space can be your bed. If you've got a desk, woohoo, fantastic. For goodness sake, use it properly. Jade talks about this, talks about the sanctity of the space. I'm going to use slightly different words, but we're basically saying the same thing. Here, you work, and the only thing you do at that place is work. Now, you're immediately kind of going, hold on, I use my bed to sleep in. Fair enough. So here's the thing. If you have to sit on your bed to work, then I am going to say to you, you should only ever sit on your bed when you're working. Because if you are lying down on your bed, every message in your brain is going, right, it's time to go to sleep now, because I sleep on my bed. Therefore, if you have to use your bed as a place to work, always sit up when you're working. And in fact, I'd go as far as to say, if you want to do anything other than work, get off your bed and do it. Pull the pillow down onto the floor and sit on the pillow and scroll through social media. But when you're ready to then go back and work, then go back and sit on your bed. So, sit up, never lie down. And desk, the same thing applies. If you want to take a break from your study, actually get up off your desk chair and maybe sit on your bed and read a book, scroll through social media, go downstairs. Don't do it at your desk, because then, just as, for example, when you lie down in your bed, or the messages aren't time to go to sleep, when you sit at your desk, mentally, you're starting to focus in. You're kind of go, oh, right, this is where I work. This is, you know, this is what happens here. Yeah. So useful to use that kind of subconscious psychology and embed it even more, really act it on embedding it. Here are the basics. I'm going to be honest, these are the only two things that you absolutely need. You can, you know, if you can get hold of a pen or two, here Mike, you don't need lots. If you can get hold of, if you can have 4 pens of different colours, fantastic. Black, blue, red, green, about all that you need. Paper, fantastic. Absolutely need paper, punch paper. Most at A level, they won't be giving you out exercise books. You would be expected to have notes on punch paper and to fold them. Cards for revision or flashcards. Highlighters, can I just say you only need 1 or 2. You do not need the full rainbow spectrum of them. So we've talked about moving to take a break. Sanctity of space is what Jade calls it, and I think that's reasonable. If you don't have space at home or a conducive working environment at home, maybe there are a lot of you and it's just quite noisy, then use things like homework clubs. Use anything that your school provides you with that will give you a suitable learning environment where you know you're going there to work. Libraries, another great place, whether that's the school library after school or your town library. Great place to just go in and it will be quiet, good place to work. Make use of them. You don't have to have, you know, everything in place at home for you to be able to study well. You need to look out for opportunities though, undoubtedly. So now we're going over to organisation of notes. First of all, first and foremost, because I am assuming that when you hit A level, you are not going to be using exercise books for your notes. So here is a really basic, now I'm going to call it an essentials list, not even necessarily a shopping list. If you can spend the money, fantastic. If not, go to the departments in your school. I can almost guarantee that every department will have some lever arch folders, and this is what they look like. Sorry, let's the essentials list. Yeah, here, these ones with the great big spring loaded, you know, prongs to put the paper on. That spring loaded mechanism, that is the lever arch file. Basically a file that can take hundreds of pieces of paper. Throughout the course of your A level, you'll probably end up having 2 full lever arch files of notes for each subject. But at the beginning, you only need 1 per subject. But you also need dividers, a set of dividers. And you need a set per each subject. So if you're doing 4 A levels, you need 4 lever arch files and you need 4 sets of dividers. And the dividers, can I suggest for those that you need 10 dividers to a set. And these will be, I think they're about £1. These are not expensive. These might be more so, which is why I raid your school to see if there's any around there. Because here you want 1 divider per chapter of your textbook. I know, for example, that I think the AQA AS biology, there are fortunately 10 chapters in the AS biology. Each divider is 1 chapter. These are your archive files. Archive, I'm not using it in the sense that you put the notes away and you never look at them again. That is not what I'm talking about. These are where you store your notes at home. And just for the record, if you're also doing a lot more things electronically, set up a very simple filing system on the same kind of basis, biology, and then set up a folder for each chapter. And maybe then have subfolders in each of these folders, for example, for homework or coursework or whatever, particularly if your subject is coursework heavy. So just have a simple, no-brainer filing system for your notes. Can I point out, you should not be carrying around your lever arch files in school. That is going to kill you within a few weeks with the weight of them. So these are the files that stay at home. Each of those 3 or 4 folders labeled with each, labeled with each of the subjects, those stay at home. Then in addition, have one, what I call normal, bog standard, relatively slim folder, which will just take a few pieces of paper. And then have a set of dividers. Now you're probably buying a set of dividers that just has 5 dividers in the set, because each divider is for one subject. Maths, biology, chemistry, physics, whatever your 4, 3 or 4 A levels are. And this is your day file. And this file should only at most be holding the last few lessons for each subject, so that if your teacher refers back to your previous lesson, you can flick back through your notes. But it shouldn't be holding much more than a few lessons worth of notes. It should be very light to carry around, and you should be constantly moving the older notes that are in your day file into the appropriate lever arch file under the particular divider. So just some, no-brainer organisation. I have seen this level of organisation not be in place for students. And they've literally told me at the end of their AS, Miss, I'm completely lost because all my notes are just piled up in the corner of my room. And I was so horrified that they hadn't even got this basic level of organisation in place. I taught this to every subsequent new Year 12 group that I taught, just basic lessons in organisation. So here is your essentials list: pen, paper, lever arch folders and dividers, possibly only the dividers you'd need to buy lever arch folders from school, normal file, again, you might even get that as secondhand from school. And then when it comes to actually whenever you write any lesson notes, make a rule of always writing the title, and that can be from the textbook, the title of the lesson number. So if it's, lesson 12 of chapter 3, then you could just put 3.12 and then write whatever the title is of the lesson. Then write the number of pages. If you use 2 separate pages for your notes, write in the corner of the first one 1 out of 2 and the other one 2 out of 2. Then if you only come across the first page, you know you have lost the second page. And always date, just as a matter of course, date everything. The other thing that I would say, near most schools hand out homework diaries, really quite useful. Personally, I think having a small hardback notebook is also really useful, just to jot down as the lessons go along, to jot down the things that you think of that you need to do. So it might be that during a lesson you realise that you haven't really understood something. Jot that down as a note to yourself. That will help you later on that evening when you sit down to work. You're not having to think so hard, oh, what do I need to do today, for example. Diary, really useful for penciling in what you're planning to do on each day. You might choose to have either an electronic diary, because you might choose to really use this a lot, and it might be that your homework diary just isn't big enough or complex, it just can't hold the information. So getting work done, what has got to be done and how do you prioritise what needs to be done? So we're going to separate this bit into 2 sections. We're going to talk about short-term planning and we're going to talk about long-term planning for those, the courseworks or revising for your A levels at the, at the end of the course, whatever. So spoiler alert here, this is all based on lists and use of diaries. Okay, so, lists particularly. So short-term planning. So here I'm talking about either what you do on a daily basis. So maybe when you in the evening, the first thing you should do is kind of go, right, what do I need to get done this evening? And it might include other things apart from academic. It might include that your mum's asked you to do the washing up. You know, get everything written down, but possibly on a weekly basis as well. So here is my first idea, and this has come from, this is the teacher's version, the A-level mindset book, and it's called The Weekly Review. This takes an hour a week. And so what you do, the maths that you do, is you take 60 minutes and you divide it by the number of subjects that you're doing. So if you've got 3 subjects, you've got 20 minutes per subject. If you're doing 4, you've got 15 minutes per subject. And make this weekly review a time either at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week. I actually think possibly the beginning is more useful. And I've said Monday morning for the beginning of the week, but clearly this could be Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening in preparation for the week ahead. That would be a really good time to do this. And the idea of this is that you spend an hour, and this hour is kind of sacrosanct. You spend an hour reviewing what you have done over the last week for your subjects, for each subject, either 15 or 20 minutes per subject. Now, here are some ideas about what you could do, and you might get more than one done. So one is to blurt your learning. I've talked about blurting in previous videos. This is where you basically scroll down for your eyes only, using abbreviations, nearly illegible writing. You scroll down everything that you can think of that you've learnt on a particular subject. And this this second point may come out of this first point, that you identify the hard bits for each subject. In other words, that then says to you, okay, this next week, I need to actually clarify, oxygen dissociation curves, for example, or a difficult bit of geography. And the other thing that you can do is just review, okay, where am I on my homework, or coursework particularly, when does it have to be handed in? How far am I with it? You're basically just doing this roundup of the week from the week past, but ready for the week ahead, so that you're just ready and you know where you are with your subject. And therefore, in advance how hard you're going to be needing to work on top of normal lessons and stuff to keep on top of subjects. Really useful discipline to do. And can I just say, this whole planning thing is such a stress reliever. You feel far more, I know when I'm up to my eyes, when I'm almost so panicked about the amount of stuff that I need to do, that I don't even want to think about all of the things. I just want to get on and do something. It is far, far better for me to write a list of everything that I need to do, because then it's there in black and white. And then I can prioritize that list. I can work out what to do first. So here's the second really non-rocket science tip. List everything that you need to do and then prioritize it. You can do this on a daily basis. You could literally do it the first thing you do when you sit down in the evening, every evening, you work out what you've got to get done, list it all, and then prioritize it. And you can obviously do that on a weekly basis as well. Empty your head of everything and then simply number the tasks. Number 1 being the task that has to be done, the most urgent task. So here I'm going to pull in another crucial, standard time management method. And this is called the Eisenhower matrix. I'm just aware that if you're watching on your phones, this will be too small. So let me just tell you what it is. It's a very simple grid with 4 quadrants in it. And this quadrant up here says urgent. So the orange box and the yellow box are urgent. And this half says urgent, and this half says non-urgent. The green and the blue are non-urgent. That means in terms of how quickly they need to be done, urgency, how quickly. And then this top half of the big square is important. Now, important means important to you in achieving your goal, whatever that is. And the bottom half of the big square is not important to you, okay? So hopefully it makes sense that the urgent, this orange box here, where it is both urgent and important, that means you have to get that task done. This is almost like if you find your house on fire, it doesn't matter what else is on your list of things to do, you are going to put the fire out first. It is by far the most urgent thing to do, and it's the most important, okay? So urgent and important, you've got to do it now. You've got an important test tomorrow. You've got to revise, you haven't got a choice, yeah? Non-urgent, but important. So in other words, doesn't have to be done immediately, but it is still absolutely important for you to achieve your goal. Those tasks need scheduling. In terms of the urgent but not important, so basically anything that's not important to you doesn't help you achieve your goal. There is a big question as to why you are doing it if it is not important. Yeah, so if it's not important but urgent, maybe you delegate that or you put it off for a later date. Yeah, not urgent and not important, there is a big question, why the heck is it even on your list of things to do? A great example of this would be students who kind of say, oh, I want to, oh my goodness, it fills me with horror, rewrite my class notes. And I'm going, that is not important. I'm assuming your class notes are legible in some way. And it's certainly not urgent. I would be saying, why is that even on your list of things to do? Particularly if you are one of those, people who need everything to be aesthetically beautiful. I would be saying it even more strongly. It is a waste of time. If your class notes, I would say to you, practice getting your class notes slightly neater and use of different colors, a sensible use of highlighter to write them once. Never rewrite your class notes. I would personally say waste of time. So the reason that I've introduced you to this Eisenhower matrix, that's what this is called, because apparently President Eisenhower, President of the United States, used it. That helps you just kind of go, okay, how urgent is this task? Actually, is it an important task? And you can kind of quickly work out, therefore, what its priority is. You can have the background knowledge of this Eisenhower matrix to number the tasks that you need to do. Because actually something that is very important, you might choose to do as well as doing some last minute revision, for example. Okay, can I point out, this is good time management. That actually you are hardly ever having to do things at the last minute, yeah? But you are doing the things that are important but non-urgent. In other words, the deadline's a few days or a week away. That's when you're working on it. Then you're not panicking so much, you're feeling in control. Concentrate on trying to do the important but non-urgent stuff. Classic example here is ongoing timed repetition revision, which I talked about in a previous live stream. That is something that is absolutely important, non-urgent, not necessarily urgent. You might not be having a test for another 2 or 3 weeks, but absolutely that is where, ideally the majority of your time should be going. And I am just going to say, just practice these, have a go at them. Don't feel like you have to do every single one that I've suggested or every single one that Jade has suggested in her books. But start practicing and using some of these techniques, because this is all about project management. And project management, people actually earn their living doing project management. Just being able to manage a complex set of tasks that have to be done, all kind of interweaved and at the same time. That's what you're doing 4 A levels. So that is why that's why I'm trying to teach you some of these skills now. So those were my two short-term planning methods to help you. A weekly review and just making prioritized lists on either a daily or a weekly basis and just understanding that Eisenhower matrix. So now we're talking about long-term planning. So now I'm talking about months plus. Yes, so this might be that you're told that you've got, I don't know, geography or piece of coursework to do. And actually the deadline isn't for 3 or 4 months. What you absolutely do not want to be doing is leaving it for the last 3 weeks. I mean, that would be very sad time planning, dare I say it. So here's the weird expression that hopefully you will stick in your brain because it is so flipping weird. The question is, and it's a common time management question, how do you eat an elephant? One small slice at a time. So if there is a task, your coursework, I don't know, your 40 pages of whatever it is you've got to do, and you've got 4 months to do it in, it almost seems insurmountable. You don't even know where to start. How do you eat an elephant? You've got to cut it down into smaller tasks so that you can slowly eat away at the far bigger insurmountable task. And to mix the metaphors, the elephant is often kind of the elephant in the room when you're doing your daily planning, because it's very easy to think about all the things like the urgent things I need to do for the next day or two, but not address the thing that has a deadline for 4 months' time. And it's really important that you do so. So how do you eat an elephant? One small slice at a time. So here we come to monthly planning. Oh my goodness, we're now kind of going. And I would say, well, certainly for now, because obviously tomorrow is the 1st of September, I'd say, either do it tomorrow or maybe do it next weekend when you've actually started school and you've had a week of school. But, generally the 1st of the month, okay, what do I want to get done this month? And here we go, list what you want to achieve. And I've used these initials, PASH, because I didn't have enough room to write it all. PASH, personal. What personal goals do you want? Do you actually want to achieve something more than all of the work that you're doing for your A-levels? Are you doing a gold DofE, for example? Are you leading in some out-of-school group? Do you have extra activities that you are responsible for that need to be taken into account? A is academic. So what academic work have you got? S is social, because actually really important that those things happen too. And H is health. So this is about your whole, the holistic you. Everything that you want to achieve, you write it all down. So I've given, examples here, and I haven't, this isn't a good enough list. Understand oxygen dissociation curves, that's academic, obviously. Sleep better, health. Practice planning, maybe that could be personal because that is a long-term skill that you want to practice. And revise organic syntheses, which is a particularly horrible bit of chemistry A-level, that would be academic too. So list all of those things. But notice some of these things that you want to achieve are not, how do you know if you're sleeping better? Yeah, so we want to actually break these bigger, and I'm going to, almost call them little elephants, these bigger tasks down into smaller weekly tasks. So, for example, understanding oxygen dissociation curves. If you didn't understand a single word of the lesson, that's not necessarily your fault, but if you just didn't get it at all, then week 1, so let's assume that there's 4 weeks in a month. Week 1, your task here would be to go to see your teacher so that they could go through it again. Yeah. Week 1 of sleeping better, one of your things might be, is to maybe look up sleep research as to what can help you sleep better. Yeah, and then you might find out that actually allowing yourself time between your work and trying to go to sleep, you need to allow an hour. You've got to stop work at 10 so that you've got some hope of being asleep by 11. Yeah, so, and that would then be maybe, so week 1 would be looking up. Week 2 would be, right, put some of those things in place. So actually, I am going to stop at 10 and I'm going to, I don't know, do something brainless, read a relaxing book, do a jigsaw puzzle, do something that requires a little bit of brain power, but not too much, and doesn't suck you in for you to be doing it then until 2 o'clock in the morning. Social media might be an example of that. Reading a really interesting book might be an example of that. So I hope that we're getting the idea of how we can break down big ideas into smaller weekly tasks. And now I'm going to introduce another classic time management technique, is making SMART goals. And so this idea of sleeping better is not a SMART goal because it isn't very specific. It certainly isn't measurable. What does better mean? Does it mean that you sleep solid, you have no interruptions in your sleep, or does it mean that you sleep 7 or 8 hours rather than 5? Yeah, so measurable. A is attainable. In other words, don't set yourself goals that are totally beyond where you are now. Yes, I'm going to set you something to do right at the end of this live stream, and I'm hoping that I'm going to encourage you to set SMART goals rather than ones that they're in your dreams in comparison to where you are now. Please understand, I'm not saying that you can't reach those in your dreams goals, but most of us have to kind of work up to being perfect. We don't do it in one step. Are relevant. In other words, are they important? Are they actually helping you achieve your goal? Yeah, remember that definition of important. And timely. In other words, they should always have a deadline. Yeah, so that you know when you've got to get the thing done by. So notice that arranging to see your teacher in the first week to go through oxygen dissociation curves, that is specific. It is measurable. Have you done it or not? Yep, you know whether you have. It is attainable. It's a realistic goal. It's relevant. It's absolutely going to help you achieve your goal. And you've set yourself the deadline. You're going to do it in that first week. Immediately, it is a SMART goal. I hope that kind of makes sense. So I've now actually introduced you to several, techniques. We've done weekly review, we've done prioritizing lists, we've talked about Eisenhower matrix, we've talked about monthly planning with SMART goals. My goodness, time management experts would be so proud of me. And then we come to this really weird one of frogs and banisters. And again, this is like, how do we eat an elephant one small slice at a time? Because there is a saying that, and this is, I can't remember who said it, but some work person, said, if you've got to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. In other words, get the horrible job over and done with. And then he came up with the second phrase, which was, if you've got to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. So if you've got 2 horrible jobs to do, do the most horrible one first. Yeah. I'm going to be really honest. I'm not great at doing this. Yeah, this is quite a tricky one for me. So the frog is the worst task, but notice there is another definition for the worst task. The frog can also be the task which has the best overall consequences. So a good example of this in maths would be learn your times tables. Yeah, learn your times tables really well, because, oh my goodness, learning your times tables is going to help you with so many other bits of maths. So if you can identify a task that if you crack it, or at least start cracking it, it's going to help you with so many aspects of your academic, let's say, life, then do that one first. So if you need to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. If you need to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. Okay, so, and here's the banisters, frogs and banisters. Thing about banisters, you only see and you only use the top of the banister. Only the top of the banister needs to look beautiful and needs to be nice and smooth, because that's the top, that's the bit that you run your hand down to steady yourself as you're going down the stairs. Don't bother polishing the underneath of the banister. And this is something that students have a very strong tendency to do, because don't polish the underneath of the banister. So this is about where you don't waste time doing tasks that don't contribute or achieve the goal. So a great example of this again would be making your class notes or your revision notes aesthetically beautiful. That is totally, in my view, polishing the underside of the banister. Yes, your notes have to be legible enough and attractive enough for you to be able to read them and for certain things to stand out, but they do not have to be aesthetically perfect at all. That, I'm going to be honest, is an utter waste of time. You are polishing the underside of the banister. You think you're contributing, you think you're working, or you fool yourself that you're working, when actually you're doing a task that isn't helping you achieve your goal. And yet somehow you fool, dare I say it, that sounds horrible, but you fool yourself that you're doing so. So there are, and I didn't want to completely overload you with, time management techniques, but there are my strategies for you that might well help you just get, as it were, your house in order for this new academic year. So here is my challenge. Now, jot down your SMART goals. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to summarize what I have talked about, because it might prompt you that one of those might be your SMART goals. So in terms of organising your space, do you just want to write yourself a little post-it, only sit up on the bed to work? Yeah. Don't do social media at my desk. Yeah, maybe that's a SMART goal. Yeah, it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant. Okay, we haven't set a time deadline. Yeah. Or do you want to make a shopping list? Yeah, get yourself those lever arch files, those dividers, a few pens, a couple of highlighters, so that your desk everything is ready to go, and you know what you're going to do with your notes in advance. Have you decided, for example, that actually, do you know, I might try doing a weekly review, or I might try doing those daily lists and prioritising them? Notice that I am not expecting you to have written down every single flipping thing that I have just said, because I would challenge you and say, is that a SMART goal, in as much that have you just set yourself a completely unattainable goal? Because if it's totally unattainable, you won't manage it, and then you'll be discouraged and you won't bother doing any of it. Oh dear, there's a little bit of, it's just, you're just discouraging yourself. Make things, be realistic with yourself, make them attainable, because then you're encouraged. Kind of go, oh, I've just done a weekly review, and that kind of helped me, and oh, this daily list, that helped me too. Or maybe I might try doing, that using that important, urgent thing, or maybe I might try harder to make all of my goals SMART. You're on a virtuous circle, rather than setting yourself a goal this big and you're on a vicious circle where you're demoralizing yourself and going down. But anyway, so there are There it is. That's me over and done with. Hopefully that was useful. If you do have any questions, do tap them out in the chat, and I'll be really happy to answer them. But if nothing comes up in the next few seconds, I'm going to wish you all the very best for the start of the new academic year. See if you can't put some things in place just to get you starting that year really well. Go back and have a look at my how to revise techniques so that you can do ongoing revision right from the start, particularly if you're starting A-levels now. Be an absolutely brilliant thing to just get in place. That would be an important but non-urgent, most of the time, task. Remember the big green square that you want to spend most of your time doing. That would be great. Would making notes again, but adding bits to help you understand it be a waste of time still? You know what I would tend to do, Erin? That's a great question. Absolutely brilliant question. I would either say to you, summarize your notes, but so in other words, if you're just copying down, you know, hopefully you're not, but if you're just copying down stuff from the whiteboard from your teacher, you know, summarize those things, but then add in little notes, maybe in a different color. I don't know if you've noticed that I tend to add explanatory notes in pink on these slides. I write the main text either in blue or in black, and I tend to write advantages in green, go, and disadvantages in red, stop. Yeah, and that's how basic use of color in your notes. So what I would encourage you to do, summarize and add little notes to help your understanding. So then you've done something other than don't just copy out your notes ever. That's the waste of time. Or I would say to you, when you write your notes in your lesson, every so often leave 2 or 3 lines, so that actually if you want to write yourself a note later, you've got the space to do it. So that's what I would say to you. My absolute rule is, if you are copying out something, you are not working, because you're not using your brain. You want to be doing something where your brain is processing the information, because if it's not processing the information, you're not helping yourself. I hope that helps, Erin. Right, how would you tackle reviewing a year's worth of work? Ooh, elephant in the room. Elephant in the room. Okay. So don't know what your time scale is. Do you know what I would do? I would try and print out a list. Maybe even if you just photocopy the page, you know, I've got a GCSE textbook in front of me now. So even if you photocopy here am I thinking of something really quick, index page of your textbook, and then you red, amber, greened, rag coded each of the lessons. Red, I didn't get that at all, or I don't know that at all. Amber, yes, I got it, or yes, I know that reasonably well. Green, totally fine. I could tell you the content of that lesson right now. So red, amber, green it, either in terms of, notice it's 2 things that I've suggested, either in terms of your understanding or in terms of how well you actually know the content. Probably in terms of understanding first. I think that's probably what you're getting at in terms of reviewing notes. In fact, I can stop sharing seeing as I'm just answering questions now. So let me do that. So yeah, there we go. That's just a bit better. So hopefully that is useful, and that'll give you an idea as to where you are. And then you are going to have to chop down those amber and red classified ones, and then the frogs thing would come in. Work on the red ones rather than the amber ones. Work on the awful ones first. How much better is it going to feel if you've understood, you know, stuff that you've never really understood, and you get your head around it? You know, you're cracking the harder ones first. Next question. How do you tell if something you do is not wasting time? Right. My basic, yes, you have got to do some admin. You know, filing your notes, clearly your brain isn't working very hard. You're not thinking about the content that much. You could, you know, be using the time to kind of go, oh, how much can I remember? I've just seen the headline, you know, how much can I remember as I'm filing this? Yeah, but clearly there's admin tasks that you've just got to do. You don't really have a choice. But my general rule of thumb, if you're doing academic work, if your brain is not working hard to either understand something, make connections with other bits of the syllabus, or to actually remember and regurgitate something, i.e. learning something, then you're not working your brain as hard as you could do. And the less you are working your brain, the more you are wasting your time. And that sounds really harsh, but I hope you understand that. I hope that makes sense. How do you tell if something is not wasting time? Like sticking my notes inside a notebook when we get half of them printed out and half of them we have to write on our own. Is it wasting time? No, because that's an admin task. You've got to, but then that makes me sound like you're using, yeah, I wouldn't be sticking them in a notebook. Presumably the bits that you get from your teachers are A4, you could punch holes in them and then you put them in a file. That to me makes more sense organisationally than it sounds like your notebook is going to end up being really thick and you're never quite going to have the teacher's notes in quite the right place with respect to your notes possibly. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, general rule of thumb is if you are doing academic work, the harder your brain is processing or retrieving information, the less you are wasting time, the better use you are making of your time. And I hope that helps you. Any other questions? I'm thinking, I think we're about there. So I think I'm going to say goodbye until next week. I might do something on effort next week, and how, you know, the whole transition from GCSE to A level, particularly for you bright students that didn't find the content of GCSE too difficult. I hope that has been helpful. Thank you, Erin, for your thank you. I hope it's been helpful for the rest of you. And do spread the word around. Oh, I haven't done the whole like and subscribe thing. I'm rubbish at all of that kind of stuff. I really do want people to know that my resources are here on YouTube and that I have resources on my website, www.biologycarol.co.uk. Do have a look. There is a freebie. And hopefully that might be useful to you because there's the aim. All right. See you next week, guys. Bye-bye.